So you land a youth ministry interview, congratulations. But now what? Before you walk in and start pitching Fortnite lock-ins, I'm going to share with you my 5 different levels of interview techniques that I've used in my over 15 years of youth ministry and probably more than 50 different interviews. But make sure that you stick around to the end because I'm going to throw a twist at you that most youth pastors miss. Welcome everybody to the Hybrid Ministry Show. Well, hey everybody, welcome to the Hybrid Ministry Show. My name is Nick Clayson. I am your host, and we're going to be answering this question: what advice would you give to someone going into their first interview for a youth pastor position, knowing that the only experience they have is as a leader or a volunteer? Like I said, we're going to be walking through my 5 levels of youth ministry, and we're going to share a tip and then a test that you are going to lay out before the church. And so the first tip is make sure that you show up on time and that you dress appropriately. Like this, listen, this is the basics. Be there when you say you're going to be there. Dress how you feel like you should dress for the job. But the test, okay, is a little bit of, maybe a little bit of a surprise, is that maybe don't dress quite so appropriately and see how the church responds to maybe you showing up in shorts, you showing up in a t-shirt. Now listen, you have to be willing to maybe not land that particular job. But I know in my experience, there's been times where, like one time I went to a church and I didn't want to go to a church that was all stuck up and where I was going to have to dress up every single week and wear a tie. And so I went to meet the youth pastor. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was like, you know what? I'm wearing shorts, and we're just going to see how they respond to that. And to their credit, they responded actually really well. But there's a element in there where you're kind of like watching and observing and seeing how they're going to respond. Now, you have to know the context. You have to know where you're walking into. And in most interviews that either I've been a part of or that I have hosted, the interviewee does tend to be the more overdressed. But that all depends on the type of church that you're going to find yourself at and the type of context that you find yourself in. But the very basics is show up on time and be as professional as possible. Level 2 is what I call the apprentice mode. And in this, the tip is that you need to research the church and its values. You should watch a couple or listen to a couple of sermons. You should read their about page. You should not be surprised if they don't have a denomination listed in their name, what their denomination is that they've just changed their name from. But you should have some info and some basics about this church from some of the research that you've pulled up online. Now, the other thing, the test in this is that you should have questions about their values queued up that you find that you are genuinely curious about. So as you're having the interview and as they're asking you things and you notice something, they ask a certain question. I want you to earmark that, because at the end of every interview, they say, what questions do you have for me? And when I'm in the interviewer seat, I want that person to ask me questions about where I work. I want to be able to help fill out the picture for what it looks like. And when they say, I think I'm good right now, that, I'm just going to be honest, is a little bit of a turnoff for me. And so in the same way, be gearing up and have some questions. So for example, at the church I work at now, I noticed that their small group system all meets on Sunday morning, which at the exact same time, so does student ministry. So I ask questions about the value of small group, as well as what it means for me as a youth pastor at this church to be able to be in and around and a part of community. And I got what I needed. Another thing that happened at this church was I asked questions about where they stand and how they feel about social media and hybrid ministry. This is the Hybrid Ministry Podcast. And since I've been here in the last 3 years, we've experienced 2x growth in our youth ministry attendance and in our youth ministry involvement. But it didn't come with a little bit of a price where some people were like, do you know what the youth ministry is doing and how much emphasis and how much time and effort they're putting in to social media? And we had to overcome a little bit of that with some people who are a little bit put off by our approach to our hybrid ministry. But as you can see, it's paid off. Okay, quick break. Let me ask you a question. Are you still waking up every day as a youth pastor, scrambling to figure out what you need to post on your social media? Blurry dodgeball pic, a video that your leader sent you that's a little bit pixelated because iPhone still hasn't updated fully to RCS yet. You see, you don't need that kind of stress this fall. That's why I created the fall seasonal social media pack for youth pastors. It is 3 months worth of done for you content. Done for you paired with some customization so that you and your leaders and your students are the faces and the personalities on your student ministry Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts feed. See, here's the thing. You can grab my pack right now over on Patreon. And did you know that monthly Hybrid Hero Patreon members who only pay $4 per month and get a bonus podcast, they get this pack completely for free. So if you do the math, for 3 months worth of social media content, it's only $12, where the pack is $17.99. Either way, it is a steal for you, and it will take away the stress of posting. And you can grab that pack right now and start becoming a master at social media and hybrid ministry in your youth ministry context. Rooting for you as you are crushing it this fall in your student ministry. Level 3 takes me to my pro mode, and it's to ask my favorite interview question of all time. And the question is this: if I accepted this job and I started tomorrow and I did an amazing job, I hit a home run, what did I do? What did I do? That's my tip. And I want you to ask that question regardless of if you're new and just a volunteer stepping into a potential paid youth ministry position or a youth ministry veteran. And here's why. And honestly, the tip is the test, because this question will show you and it will reveal and it will, like a detective, uncover what your interviewer, what your boss, what your senior pastor, whoever it is, the personnel committee that you're sitting down with and having this discussion, it will show you what they are looking for and what they are valuing as a youth pastor when a youth pastor comes into their church. And another thing that you might notice is they may have some very strict particular ideas, and you might ask, like, so how did it end with the last person that was here? And you might come to notice that they're trying to interview for the opposite person, especially if it ended badly. And so that's not a red flag. That's not a reason to say no to the job, but it's worthwhile for you to take note of, like, okay, I'm up against this person's performance and the expectations that this person brought to the job, and they're trying to find someone a little bit different, and you're going to have to at least be able to speak to that. And if they say this person has to be incredibly organized, you say, is it okay if I stack a team of people around me to help me be organized, because that might not be my strong suit, or something like that. But be prepared to respond to that question. If I did a great job, what did I do? The fourth level, which is the mentor mode level, is the tip I want to have for you is have a defined philosophy of ministry for yourself. If you know why you do what you do, then when you get in, you start talking Fortnite lock-ins and ideas. Like, I'm just going to be honest, when I, as an interviewer, get a bunch of like ideas of like youth ministry stuff, I genuinely don't care. And the reason I don't care is not because I don't think those aren't good ideas, but those aren't the real needle movers. The real needle movers are the ideas that are tied to a genuine biblical purpose. So in our church, we kind of operate out of like a 4-chair disciple-making model. Other churches or other people, like, I would recommend, if you don't know anything about a philosophy of ministry before you hop into an interview, take a look through either one of these two books, Purpose-Driven Youth Ministry by the GOAT himself, Doug Fields, or 4-Chair Discipling by Dan Spader. Or better yet, read them both. But everything you do, we just had this discussion last week with my current interns, residents, and staff, and we said everything we do around here is incredibly strategic and incredibly tied to a reason and a biblical purpose. Even if from the outside looking in, you're like, you guys are just the hybrid ministry social media people. Like, no, every single reason by what we do on social media ties back to a particular meaningful moment and meaningful reason and meaningful purpose. And while you're in the interview, the test for you, once you have your philosophy of ministry laid out, is you need to try and listen for balance in their line of questioning across all the lanes of disciple making. For example, they might lean heavy evangelism. So while you're in there, the test question that you might have is you might ask them about their disciple making culture, or they might lean heavy on education and discipleship, and you might ask them, what's the last outreach event that you've had? So the test is you want to try and listen for and aim for some measure of balance. And churches tend to skew and lean either strong discipleship, strong evangelism, strong worship, strong serving, but you want to try and listen for or ask about, right? And if you have a philosophy of ministry and they don't talk about worship at all, you might ask about, hey, what's your opinion of worship? Like, how does your church, how does your youth ministry attempt to approach that? The fifth and final level, which is the boss level, which is where the twist comes in. The tip is this. The tip is flip the interview and interview them, right? The bottom line about all this is the church isn't just choosing you, though they are. You're also choosing them. You have to decide, do I want to work here? Is this the type of place I want to be? Do I like them, right? During this interview process, do they treat me well? Because here's the fact, they're going to treat you in the interview process as well as they're ever going to treat you. And can you see yourself, and can you see, even maybe more importantly, especially if you have a wife and kids, can you see your family there long term, right? This is the secret cheat code that sets you apart. That is the test. That is the twist, is that you are going to be interviewing them. And you see all throughout the tests that I offer are different little subtle tests where you're trying to gain intel and you're trying to come to an understanding of the church as well. And so the cheat code for this is that when you learn to interview them, they also, because you're going to be curious, they like that. They like when people are curious. They like when people are asking questions. So if you think that this helped you level up your interview game, hit the subscribe button that you see here on screen, as well as hit this next episode button where we're going to be answering some more questions and trying to head through different layers and levels of youth ministry. It will help you both crush your weekly ministry as well as help you get a new job in the future. But until next time, and as always, my friends, don't forget, stay hybrid.